Hey, good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming out. Thanks again to Google for having us. My name is Lindsay Smith. I'm the product manager for Puppet Enterprise. Like Don said, stick around through the whole day. I'm probably going to tell you some stuff if you've been working with Puppet for a while that you already know, but maybe there'll be some things that are new to you. If you're newer to Puppet, hopefully I'll tell you a lot of things that are new and kind of helpful as you kind of go down your journey. To get started, we want to do a quick poll about who's here. And Dawn, to make this even more exciting, is going to be giving out some Puppet books. So raise your hand. Are you using Puppet now? Which is almost everybody, not everybody. Have you been using, keep them up. Have you been using the Puppet for more than a year? Drop your hands if it's less than a year. 2 years. Wow. 3 years. If I keep going longer than Puppet existed in our hands up. So 3 years, that's a lot. All right, you guys should know you don't need the book at this point. Well, this is a good question, right, for you, like you old timers. It's like, are you still on Puppet 2? Raise your hand if you're on Puppet 2. You're a bad person. All right. So then I'll just like everybody else. That's Puppet 3. Now here's the real question, because I'm the PE guy. Who's using Puppet Enterprise? You're all awesome people. Keep doing that. If you want to do something with books or. Okay. So all right. So if you have been you are using Puppet and it's less than 1 year. Hands back up. Using Puppet less than 1 year. 9 months. 6 months. Keep those hands up. There's entries in it for you. Back in the front row, you got a reward if you put it in the front.
Oh, all right.
Dawn.
Put your hand up. You already have.
Dawn. Do you have the book? Same one. Is he brave enough to sit in the front row? Okay. You too. Again, pro at Puppet. Okay. So actually, like, let me tell you something. This is the classic Chinese curse. These are the days of more services, more servers, higher expectations on an IT organization, and there's literally no future where IT is smaller or matters less. New apps, new services, get the new version into production. 9 months to wait is too long. 3 months to wait is too long. I feel silly saying things like that. In Google's office, they probably deployed 17 things in the last 9 seconds. But anyway, not everybody lives in that world. Do you still find yourself waiting for the maintenance window? A Gartner analyst told us that they've been tracking, the metrics they track with their clients. The time to provision a server into production is actually getting worse. It's not getting better. And I figure we should be better at this by now because we've had a lot of practice building servers and deploying software on them. All practices are constraints. And why is that? You can't hire one sysadmin for every 25 servers anymore. You can't choose not to change. A lot of you, the old constraints are gone anyway. You can launch 1,000 machines in 20 minutes. You can take that $500 credit GCE, and that's a few machines for a really, really long time because it's darn cheap at GCE. Or you can run some really heavy horsepower machines for, I don't know, quite a while. Your workloads can shift in minutes, not days. Your developers have adopted lean or agile practices. They wouldn't dream of working without source control, and they're shipping code to you every day, or every week, every day, maybe even every hour. You know what these things are. This is DevOps, the rise of the cloud, the transition to WebOps style apps, the demand for self-service IT. All of these had a really profound effect on the IT landscape. So there is really no future when there are fewer servers, fewer services, or that they're any less critical. So that kind of sets a table for why Puppet Labs matters. This is our goal here, driving down the cost of technological change. And I'll talk a little bit about who we are and what we are. Puppet Labs was started about 8.5 years ago by Luke Knies, who was a sysadmin. And there were kind of two things. There was a fear that the tools available at the time were never going to get better, but he did have some hope that widespread adoption of better practices would spur a new generation of sysadmins and tools to kind of go along with it. And Puppet was kind of the fruit of that. This is where you see us mostly. Puppet is primarily used for servers. Recently, we've expanded into network and storage device management. There's a lot of technology partners building integrations around Puppet, and I'll talk about that more in a little bit. You can also manage workstations and laptops, and actually that's how Google, the primary use of Puppet at Google is managing their fleet of MacBooks. But that's not quite as common as servers and data centers in the cloud. We are growing very rapidly along every dimension. Luke has created a really amazing community organization around Puppet. The employees are super passionate about helping people succeed with Puppet, and not just succeed with Puppet, but like kind of succeed with their goals. So as you well know, a lot of what it takes to be a successful IT organization is not just about the tools that you choose. It's about the people in the organization and the process. And Puppet is very conducive to that, and I think our employees sort of like, they want to foster that too. They don't want you to just learn a new technology. They want to help you actually be a more effective organization. So the community is, everything around Puppet has grown along many dimensions. The community is bigger. There are more modules in the Forge. There's more demand for jobs with Puppet skills. There's a lot more employees, and we have customers everywhere. This is a really amazing and frankly humbling list of people that are being successful with Puppet, and basically any kind of vertical you can think of is represented there. Which, I guess at this point there's really no question that this is a very serious problem to solve. It's very painful, it's very real, and it's very high priority for a lot of organizations. So I think this list kind of shows that that's kind of beyond question. This also helps me explain what we do to my parents. They've heard of Bank of America. Constant Contact, maybe not. Also, we've developed, we're developing a really amazing network of partners. Maybe you've heard of some of these companies. Because of kind of the huge advantages that Puppet can bring, the idea of infrastructure as code. I think a lot of these vendors that are not usually like compute device server vendors, that they're really kind of realizing how powerful that concept is, and they've come to us. Mostly in the network and storage device realms. So recently we announced the Puppet Support Program. The people in that now are Cisco, Dell, F5, Cumulus, Arista, Huawei, NetApp, Brocade, PMC. So you'll see more integrations with their network and storage devices over time. Oracle is now shipping Puppet with Solaris 11.2. That's brand new. And we have various and sundry things with some of these other companies, so like Atlassian. We've got some great stuff on with Microsoft. The ServiceNow integration. If you're enterprise IT, there's a really nice integration with ServiceNow. ServiceNow does sort of like people process management and being sort of server management, very complementary kind of thing. But okay, so that's kind of why Puppet is important. Who we are, some of the people that are using it today, some of the people that are building integrations. Now I'm going to actually talk about what Puppet is and how we kind of solve for server management and automation. So this is an example of Puppet code. It should be pretty clear what this does. It's managing SSH. That there's a package that needs to be installed. We need to manage the configuration file, and we need to make sure that it's running. Very, very straightforward. This is something you can pass to your auditor if you're in that kind of business. It's very readable, but you can execute it directly, and a lot of people call it executable documentation. Easy to get started and to get real work done, but the language is flexible enough to allow custom and complex things and more advanced tasks with programming language like constructs. But the Puppet language is just kind of one aspect of the solution. The language lets you define how your system should be, and I think that's sort of like the really key point. That instead of saying, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this. You say, the result should look like this, and then Puppet figures out how to do that. So that's that definition. And the way you do that is reusable infrastructure as code. It's simple text. You can check it into version control. You have the history, you have the blame log, you have the history of everything. There's approvals and there's workflows. There's a lot of advantages to having this all implemented as code. So once you get your definition of what the system should be, another very kind of powerful and unique capability of Puppet is you can actually simulate what would happen. You can look at a system and compare it to its definition of what it should be, and say, well, it mismatches here and here, and I would have done this. So there's a lot of, you can see what would happen. You don't actually have to go and do it. You don't, and again, talking about like a procedural thing where do this, do this, do this, do this. It's nobody really simulate that. You actually have to go and do this, do this, do this. So the simulation capability is very interesting. So you can see what's going to happen before you deploy your change. And then obviously you can tell Puppet, or in our parlance, it's enforce. Puppet will go and enforce the definition. And, these things match, these two things didn't, so I wouldn't change them for you. And then obviously you get a report out of everything that it did. So you get kind of an insight into things are as they should be, things were not as they should be, and I changed them for you, or you changed your Puppet code. And so we completed that change for you, and here's a report back that proves it. And you can show it to your auditor if you need to. That was a broad strokes view of the kind of Puppet model, and this is a little more nuts and boltsy how it actually achieves that. So the node, that's the server or device that's actually being managed by Puppet, and when it needs to compare its state and in my desired state, it sends a set of facts, bits of information about itself. It sends that up usually to the Puppet master, and Puppet master combines the facts, Puppet code, and some other information. It does some magic. And it sends it back, a catalog back to the node. And the catalog has all the information that the node needs to figure out whether it's in its desired state. And again, it's not, hey, little node, do this, do this, do this, do this. This is what I'm going to send you everything you need to know about how you should be. And then the node is able to figure that out for itself. And if it needs to make changes, it can. And then there's the report back to the master. And you can also export those reports on to other collectors if you need to do that. Now this is a view of how your actual Puppet, Puppet Enterprise deployment would look like. So kind of going from top to bottom. As I said, there's an agent running on every one of these servers, and it can be any type of server. It can be, regardless of what the server's role is, web server, app server, whatever, or kind of like what the underlying hardware or not hardware, bare metal virtual machines, cloud instances, it doesn't really matter. But there's an agent running on each one of those things. And in most cases, they connect up to a Puppet master deployment. And master's not just like one thing. There's a number of components in there. And on the enterprise, in the enterprise product, it's all built on the Puppet open source platform, and then in enterprise, they layer on additional kind of capabilities, reporting, the workflows, and user interface. Obviously, there's tons of content from the Puppet Forge, and also there's security administration tools built into the master. So in the Puppet world, you've got a master, you've got agents on those machines. They connect to the master, and that's basically how it works. Okay, so I talked about the Puppet approach, and I'll talk a little more in practical terms about how you get adopted. And there's really two ways you can make Puppet work for you. It's Puppet open source and the commercial Puppet enterprise product. They solve the same problems. But I think you're missing the point if you think it's the free one versus the paid one. Which one you choose depends more on your organizational character and how you choose to invest. Because you're making an investment one way or the other. Even if you don't choose Puppet, you're making an investment. You're making a choice. But I see the choice as you're either investing your people's time and learning how to create an open source deployment, bespoke Puppet deployment, or you kind of go straight to solving your problems with Puppet Enterprise. And I'm the enterprise guy, so I think that the Puppet Enterprise will get you there faster. And PE is built on top of, obviously it's built on top of Puppet open source, but the Puppet solution is actually several separate open source projects that kind of mesh together to do amazing things. With Pete, you don't need to worry about installation. It has all the components in the box. They're all validated. It's packaged. The dependencies are resolved. And it's tested at scale. It scales quite well, 1 node to tens of thousands. It's easy to install and upgrade so that you get up and running more quickly. And I mean, that is kind of the key thing, that you just kind of like skip ahead. You can go to the part where you're actually managing things with Puppet. And the feature sets are supported and the APIs are supported over the long haul. And so with PE, there's no need to create a bespoke install. Getting agents on machines is very easy. Recent versions of PE have made master installation a lot better, and then the upcoming versions are going to make it even more easy, especially to kind of scale out. And PE has everything, basically all the projects that we maintain, at Puppet, Factor, Hyra, PuppetDB, InCollective, et cetera, et cetera. So in general, it just kind of like saves you time, gives you repeatability, and lets you kind of avoid having to make decisions about configuring the actual Puppet infrastructure itself. Support it's a place to turn for help if you're getting started or you encounter trouble. There's training, there's certification, there's professional services, there's documentation on top of the regular kind of support team that will answer your emails or pick up the phone for you. And with support, it means it's not all on you. So you and your organization are less reliant on in-house Puppet experts because responsive help is available, which also reduces your risk and increases your chance of being successful with Puppet. And obviously, we have a lot of service partners that are also trained and certified. And with PE, we recently had a program for supported modules, and we make compatibility guarantees around. And again, I mentioned that the technology partnerships, a lot of that's oriented on Puppet Enterprise, so that Puppet supported program, Cisco, Arista, et cetera, EMC, F5, NetApp. So I think Puppet Enterprise gets you there faster, but it's more than just installation. It's more than just support for open source. What we want to do is layer on capabilities that make life with Puppet a lot easier, let you get things done faster, let you concentrate on the things that are unique to your organization and not reinvent wheels. Some examples are analytics, real-time discovery, inventory, event inspection. What we don't want to do is just slap a web GUI on open source. And I know that's something we've been guilty of. You probably rattle off 10 open source projects that did something, some variation on it. So what we're doing now is we're trying to analyze workflows, and we're looking for ways to reduce points of friction. That could be any combination of, it could be a web UI, but it could be an API, it could be CLI tooling, it could be code, it could be best practices. We don't want it to be, open source Puppet's the one I can drive from the command line, and then Puppet Enterprise is the one with the web GUI that I never use because I don't use web GUIs. We need to be a lot better about that. This is an example in Puppet Enterprise of the event inspector. So if you've been using Puppet for more than 10 minutes, you've seen a Puppet run, it gives you a lot of output. And everything you need to know about how your Puppet run is going is in there. Did it work? Did it not work? Did something change? Did Puppet change the pack? Is my code broken? Does my code do what I expected to do? All that's there. So say you have 1,000 nodes, Puppet's running every half hour, and you have 24,000 reports per day. The answer is in there somewhere, but you've got to go and find it. So Event Inspector and Puppet Enterprise distills all of that stuff. It gives you another useful ways to see what's going on. So you can see, if you know your Puppet parlance, you know the difference between classes, nodes, and resources. So you can kind of like move to the view that makes sense to you. So you can either see, are things right, are things wrong? If something's wrong, what and where? Maybe it's a problem with the class. Maybe there's a particular resource that's problematic. You can kind of slice and dice and get to the problem very quickly. Also, in Puppet Enterprise, there's live management. Using remote control of Puppet from a central location. You can run on demand. You can enforce change if you make changes to your Puppet code. And live management also has resource browsing and a centralized inventory. It collects real-time information about your infrastructure, makes it searchable. You can see what you have. You can drive around in your infrastructure, see what's what. Look for anomalies and see differences. So I think an example that hit home for us, and people would tell us this, like literally, was when Hartley the Heartbeat vulnerability came out, someone told us, like, yeah, the Heartbeat comes out, my boss comes to me and says, how many machines do we have that are vulnerable? He says, I don't know. So he goes to live management and just like this resource, this is groups, but you can browse by package. He just went to live management, looked for OpenSSL, and he's got this list, 72 servers. 10 minutes later, walks back to his boss. We have 72 servers that are vulnerable. So this is good for two reasons. One is he has a punch list of servers to work against, and two, he looks really good in front of his boss. So he spends another 10 minutes, writes a Puppet module that says, sets the package to the right version of OpenSSL that's not vulnerable, applies those, runs Puppet, then he goes back to live management, browses resources again. You can see that all of the versions of OpenSSL that are present in our environment, or at least the machines that are being managed by Puppet, none of them are vulnerable to Heartbleed. Again, he goes back to his boss. Look, I can prove to you that we have in our little world, we have no machines that are have a vulnerable version of OpenSSL. And again, he looks good in front of his boss and was able to kind of take care of all of that very quickly. So that ability to browse resources and centralize inventories, you don't always need it, but when you do, it's really, really helpful. Something else we also, and if you're a Puppet old timer, I'm just going to assume you're an infrastructure sysadmin of some sort, and that's where Puppet originated, and that makes a lot of sense. But over time, teams around those infrastructure teams have noticed how much better their lives have been since they adopted automation and tools like Puppet, and they kind of want to get in on the act as well. And so this non-root Puppet agent support is with application teams. They're we don't want to manage the whole box, but what we do want to do is lay down new jars and floors and change the configuration policy. We do that with Puppet. And so newer versions of PE, this is better facilitated so that the app teams can do what they need to do and safely. They don't have like total control over the box. They don't have root access. They can't go meddle with logging or start installing packages and turning off services, but they can do what they can do by the terms of their user permissions. So it kind of lets everybody play nicely together. And we see this a lot. DBAs, app teams, there's just, in the whole, like, the network and storage, that's like, it's so successful, in terms of compute and infrastructure, that's starting to kind of filter out into these kind of adjacent areas. We see a lot of that these days. Also new, relatively new in PE is the supported modules program. So you're probably familiar with Puppet Forge. Lots of content, much of it created by the community. Maybe you guys have created Puppet modules and have them on the Forge, but we have a pretty good idea what almost everybody uses Puppet to manage. And so what we did was we invested in working with those modules very heavily. We either help make it better, develop them ourselves. They're heavily tested. It goes through our whole automation test suite. And so for Puppet Enterprise, we'll make guarantees around that we will say it will work with this version of Puppet, it will work on this operating system. And if something doesn't, if it's not working, we'll pick up the phone and we'll help you, and then we'll also try to fix it. So we're bringing that sort of like supported banner to really important common modules, and we continue to grow that over time. I don't know how many of you have to use Windows in your daily life, or at least manage Windows servers, but a lot of that is a lot of that content is Windows oriented as well. This is not even the current list anymore, but it's grown since then. But I mean, this is the basic stuff, right? NTP, Postgres, MySQL, for Windows, reboot, registry. This is just Apache. This is the basic stuff. And we're just going to try to pick off things. Again, what we want you to be doing is spending your time managing the things that are unique to you and not, MySQL is not unique to you. Hopefully, well, maybe you do have a unique use case for MySQL, but by and large, if you have an app team, a 3-tier web app, hopefully the MySQL and Postgres modules are sufficient. And this has grown since the slide was shot, and will continue to grow into the future. And we absolutely welcome your input about what you think are the most common use cases. Okay, so I talked about PE and the different kinds of value that it provides. And I said it's not just a choice between the free one and the paid one. So now I'll talk about open source itself, why you might adopt Puppet open source, the individual projects within Puppet open source, and kind of how the FOSS program benefits everything. Puppet open source is where we innovate and experiment. And we don't feel that we can simultaneously innovate and experiment, but also promise 2 years of support. We need room to make mistakes and try new things. An example is iteration in the Puppet language. If you pay attention to the language itself, when the Puppet 4 comes out, actually iteration might already be there, but so we should have iteration of the Puppet language. So how do we do that? What format do we implement that? So they said, well, let's do 4 ways and we'll let the community decide. So they coded up 4 different ways of doing iteration. Put it out to the community. Hey, everyone, what do you like? And one was the clear winner, and so they just cut the other 3 out. That's would be really weird and bad in an enterprise product. So we were able to kind of quickly, there's a real problem, we were quickly get a couple options out, people were able to use it, they were able to choose, there was a clear winner, we cut out the stuff that didn't work. That's what we want to continue to be able to do in open source. As my colleague Eric Sorensen, who runs the open source platform, says, the open source means you get innovations faster, and life is fun at the leading edge sometimes. The individual components that make up Puppet, beyond just Puppet itself, are highly configurable, and usually complete open source solutions can be unique and snowflakey. And so you can be, because they're so flexible, you can be very creative in how you wire them together. And sometimes that's required for truly unique environments. When you came in, you might have seen the big the things that was from Fermi Lab, but I believe the Large Hadron Collider, CERN's Large Hadron Collider, is the largest Puppet installation in the world. And I'm fairly confident that there are use cases unique because not everybody is giant particle accelerator. Maybe I don't know, maybe for Fermi Lab, but probably not in corporate America. Puppet itself, Puppet is not, like I said, it's not just a single thing, but Puppet itself, there's actually a lot of computer science behind Puppet, and a lot of the value kind of comes out of that. There's the DSL, the domain-specific language that you specify infrastructure state. I showed you an example of that. And the keyword is defined. Instead of, it's not do this, do this, do this, do this, it's like you should do it this way, and then Puppet will figure out how to make it that way. And kind of what underlies that is this transactional system, which is, it's idempotent, which means that no matter how many times you run it, you get the same result. Because this is kind of a problem with scripts, that you're never really sure. If you run a script and it does what you want, what happens if you run it again? It's even simple things like some Linuxes, I think, that if you run makedir on a directory that already exists, you get an error, which seems kind of weird because it doesn't seem like an error because the directory's there. Nothing went wrong, it just kind of already existed. So idempotency can be very important. Like I said, it's model based. So you give it a definition and not just steps. And which means that you can automate it, it's repeatable, you can create dependable, that you know what you're going to get. You can build a lot of trust. It's also auditable. You can have the code and the output and say, we said we were going to do this, and it's expressed here, and then we can prove that we did this. And then there's also the resource abstraction layer. It's the RAL. That's how you can say something like ensure package open SSH is present, and the RAL will figure out, well, this is CentOS, so we're going to use Yum, or this is Ubuntu, so we're going to use apps. The RAL figures those things out. The next big tool project is mCollective. It's command and control for Puppet. It's not just for Puppet. Parallel real-time execution across your whole network, real-time discovery of all the nodes and the functions. And I talked in the Heartbeat case, a lot of that is driven by the live management part of Puppet Enterprises is driving mCollective over the hood. PuppetDB stores all your configuration, your facts, and your everything. It knows everything there is to know about your infrastructure. We're building out. We continue to build more and more information into it, and it's becoming kind of a more important part of the Puppet ecosystem. And it's the foundation for all the reporting in Puppet open source and Puppet Enterprise. Factor's, I think, my favorite tool. If I had a favorite public tool, it's Factor. Facts are bits of data about your machine that you care about. It's the core input for every Puppet run. It's easily pluggable, so if you need to add custom facts or things that are unique to you, that's very easy to do. And what's new in Factor is structured and trusted facts. In the past, they were really simple, key value. The structured facts makes it a lot more flexible about the kind of information you can report back. And trusted facts means that they're cryptographically signed. Because Factor is so easily pluggable, it's easy to, if someone were malicious or maybe in error, could overwrite facts that you depend on. With trusted facts, you have a lot more certainty that the fact is what it is, and it is what it should be, and no one's either accidentally or intentionally kind of tampered with it. And that this is the foundation for the node inventory in Puppet Enterprise. Hyra, which lets you separate your site configuration data from your code, and lets you kind of iterate and kind of manage the differences between different environments. Then in the dev environment, this variable is different for production, or from East Coast data center and West Coast data center. Hyra is very good for that as you separate that data from code. Finally, Razor, which is maybe the thing that you're least familiar with, but Razor is policy-based bare metal provisioning. It feeds directly into Puppet infrastructure, so if you've got racked and stacked servers, it can recognize the things that are in those racks once they're plugged into the network. You can use rules like, oh, you're supposed to get CentOS 664, and it will go and do that for you. It'll put a Puppet agent on it, and it'll hand it off to Puppet to go and kind of do the rest of the thing. So it gives you, it's just one of those points of friction that will take you much more quickly to the production-ready infrastructure. In Puppet Enterprise, it's in tech preview right now, and that's probably the easiest way to get started with Razor. Okay, so I talked about Puppet Open Source, talked about Puppet Enterprise. There's also a lot of other stuff kind of backstops the whole shebang. The Puppet Forge, this is the centerpiece of our content ecosystem. This is the place to get modules. Again, so you can take advantage of the work of others, that your need to manage SSH is not a unique and special snowflake. It's all created by the community, for the community. We try to help you identify and use the best ones. Obviously, you can contribute your own modules, and community content nicely supplements the supported modules in Puppet Enterprise. You can just be a member of the Puppet community. It's the people that make, it is the people that make Puppet special. There's lots of ways you can join the community. I think your presence here makes you part of the community, but there's just so many ways. There's IRC, there's Ask Puppet, there's things like this. There's user groups, there's the Forge, the ultimate being contributing code to Puppet itself. And there's tons and tons of ways to get Puppet training. There's a wide variety of courses, large and small. There's certification available around the world. If you've got a friend in Argentina and she needs to learn Puppet, she's good, or New Zealand or South Africa, we have excellent training resources all around the world. And if you've been around for a while, the training hierarchy has changed over time. It used to be there was Intro to Puppet that you would send your boss to. There was Puppet Fundamentals, which would teach you the kind of the basics of writing Puppet code, and then there was, I think it was called Puppet Advanced, which was more advanced for writing Puppet code. So as things have kind of like grown and we're seeing more adoption of Puppet, we've noticed that it needed to split. So Puppet Practitioner is probably the thing that was closest to Puppet Advanced. It was like, obviously everyone is still going to learn. You're going to be driving around in a van, you're going to be learning about Puppet and classes and resources and things like that. And if your day job is going to be writing Puppet code, the more advanced class is called Puppet Practitioner now. But what we've noticed is the emergence of the need for Puppet architects. You have these large organizations, they're adopting Puppet at large scale. Life is very different if there's just 2 or 3 people on your team, you have a few hundred servers, and everything is under your control, and you can keep it all in your head about why are modules organized the way they are, and what are our practices, and it's okay if we we screw some, if we had some old code, we learn better and we do it a better way. It's all right because it's just me and 200 people, and it's very simple. It's quite different if you're in a very large organization where you have, you know, a handful or dozens or more than dozens of teams working together. There's thousands of servers. This is where this Puppet architect is coming. How do you make decisions and how do you organize things so that you can have a large organization be effective with Puppet at scale? And then all of that still kind of coalesces on the Puppet Professional certification. Also new is Puppet training for Windows. I didn't get any hints. Is there anybody who partially or primarily manages Windows servers? All right, you're good people. You're good people. Don't take any stuff from the not good people. What we had learned, again, this is a change, right? If you've been around Puppet for 2-3 years, probably running Linux, you probably come out of the Linux world. That's where Puppet emerged from, and it's no mystery why that is. But we've invested heavily in Windows for a long time. A third of the Puppet platform engineering team only works on Windows. They are Windows people through and through, but they're also Puppet people through and through. So large long-term investment in Windows on our side, and Windows is still half of the corporate data center. I'm pretty sure that's trending downward, but half? That's a lot. That's a lot of servers. So there's a ton of Windows servers anywhere. But anyway, but to speak of training, like Windows people would come in, and they're not bad people because they don't know Vim, and it's not bad people. They're not bad people because they don't know Bash, and it's just one of the things they've never had to learn, and now you've got to learn that and Puppet and Linux all at the same time. It's just kind of a pain. So what we've done is developed a Windows-specific class, so people, it's like it will be targeted to their tools, their skills, and the things that are unique. You don't need to manage registries. You don't need to manage NTFS, GPOs, ADs, all that stuff. You don't have to manage. Generally, don't have to worry about that for Linux. So the Windows class, I think it's online only. I think it's three days, something like that. But anyway, if you're a Windows server admin, there's something specific to you coming. And there's also a lot of other options. It's not just simply the few different classroom type environments. There's a lot of, we're constantly making little snippets. Like, you need an intro to Get, we've got a 15-minute intro to Get. There's like all kinds of like little things that we find people like will get hung up on, not just Puppet stuff, but little bite-sized pieces. If there's something that's interesting, what is a type? What is a provider? We'll have like a little bit of content for you. And it's all online, and it's all free. As I kind of like wind down here, is anybody a Puppet test pilot? You are also good people. Puppet test pilot program, if you're ever like, I wish Puppet would do this is the best way to do that. I'm a product manager. This is actually run by our user experience team, but I participate really heavily in this. This is the shortest distance between 2 points to influence what we do. If you remember the test pilot program, you get like every once in a while you get like a survey. Hey, are you using, I don't know, are you using roles and profiles? Are you using an LDAP server with your master installation? You'll get a question like that, and if you're kind of in the right bucket that we're looking to ask questions, we would either get you on the phone or something like that. So we might ask you questions. What are your use cases around this thing? Are you having problems? Here are some concepts or ideas. What do you think of these? Here's some screenshots. Here's a prototype. Here's something we've already shipped, and we test the usability. So there's just a wide range of ways that we want to get feedback from the community. And like I said, this is a very direct way for you to have an influence on what we build. And there's shirts and Amazon gift cards and whatnot as well. So publiclabs.com/PTP if you're interested in that. And PuppetConf, 1 month away, 5 weeks away. You're running out of time. Who's going to PuppetConf? Woo! Good people. Yeah, it's not too late. One lucky person, if you stick around to the end of the day, you might win a ticket. There's discount cards in the back. And it'll be a good time. Come and join us in San Francisco. And we're hiring always and everywhere in every possible role I'm pretty sure somebody else out here works for a company that's hiring as well, so I hope this is a good place for you to kind of like meet other people and maybe find a new, a better, and more exciting gig, either with us or with someone else. And that's about it for me. Are there any questions? I said it all. Oh, yes.
Is Razor only part of Puppet Enterprise?
No, Razor is an open source project. It was originally written by EMC, and they gave it to us, and we rewrote it. So if you go on GitHub, I don't know if it's under the Puppet Labs namespace or not, but it's an open source project. But for PE, we're trying to bring it to kind of production quality that will support. But people are using it pretty heavily. Yes.
When you were talking about Puppet architects, you said targeted toward like large organizations. I want to find out roughly either the server count or number of like active Puppet contributors.
The question was about the Puppet architect class and how we kind of quantify what large means. I'm a product manager, and the answer to any question is it depends. And the answer is it depends. I think it's more about number of teams, or yeah, I think it breaks down to number of teams. I think when people talk about it, it would be we have a central sysadmin team, and we support 10 application teams. When you have sort of things like that, where I guess really maybe it just matters when teams. Maybe you hit 3 or 4 teams where you don't want to have each of those teams independently making decisions. We decided to structure it this way, and we decided to do this thing, and then everybody's doing something different. And the goals are usually we don't want 4 different teams writing and rewriting managing the same things, writing our own public code. Maybe we can share that. How do we effectively share that? How do we organize code so that it is shareable? It is understandable if this team over here wrote it for this other team to consume it or update. It's usually stuff like that we're driving behind. Anything else? Going once?
Why would you want to choose Puppet as opposed to something like, let's say, Chef or even CFO?
You really choose CFO? No, I mean, that was wrong. It depends on your organization. For the same reasons why your organization might choose open source or you might choose enterprise. It's like what best suits the character of your organization. So I think we basically solve the same problems, right? There's not that there's some huge problem that the main use cases are kind of the same. So it would be more about what fits, like who's going to be adopting it, what are you trying to use it for, what's important to you, what's not important to you. You can kind of get in there and see kind of like a few layers of the onion down. What seems to be what's going to be the best fit for you. Also, be sneaky. Anyone else? Once? Yes.
How much expertise would one should have from a business office standpoint when it comes to trying to administer project?
Okay. It's a little hard to hear. So how much expertise do you need?
Right. As in terms of basic office expertise, application expertise, is there a level that you at least have before you start to implement the project?
That's a good question. So the question is, how much expertise do you need, if I interpret it correctly, at the app level or the OS level before you would start to implement Puppet? And tell me if that's not what you meant. I think that's a really good question. One of our engineering directors, he gives a talk frequently about how his journey from adopting Puppet. And he says what his team did, and what he's seen many people do over and over and over again. Someone said, I'm interested in Puppet, and I want to start automating stuff. And I'm also interested in Oracle RAC. I've never worked with it. So they'll go and try to take Puppet, which they don't know, and Oracle RAC, which they don't know, and try to do it all at once, and it's a disaster. Because you have no idea what's going wrong. Is it you? Is it Puppet? Is it Oracle? Is it Oracle? But the point being is, he says start with something you know very well. So whatever it is that you know, whether it's your app or CentOS or whatever it is that you day in and day out, the thing that you know well, because you know all the problems, you know where the friction is, you know what the scripts, you might have written the scripts, or you know what you have to type in 50 times over. So I mean, to actually answer your question, I think it's relatively low, but I mean, if the number of servers are really small, I mean, I think the question would be like, oh, I've got 10 servers, and I don't have to do the same thing all that much. Maybe then it makes a little less sense, but I think when the number of servers get high, there's something that should be driving you to automation. It's not that, I want to use Puppet, therefore I'm going to use Puppet. Well, what are the problems that I'm trying to solve? It's usually best to start close to home. Anything else? Yes.
I would
Best question.
I want to convince, let's say, a grader to use Puppet as opposed to use something like shell script.
Okay, I don't have a feedback. Right. So, the question was like, how do you convince the canonical graders? I've been using scripts since OS 360. I don't know. I mean, I guess at some point the proof is in the pudding, right? That you can start to show that this process that we do all the time used to take this long, or we used to make this many mistakes, or we had to go do deploys on Wednesday night at midnight or something like that. If you can just start to say, look, this much time is now this much time. Whether it's now you don't have to log into 10 servers, you don't have to remember this, or you can. I assume if you've got your canonical graveyard that they're probably very senior in an organization, they've been around a long time. Part of the value is that they know everything about everything. Part of the value of automation Puppet is you can start to delegate that stuff out. So you can have a more junior person who doesn't know every single bit of everything. But they can start to do things where they don't have to flow through that one, like, I'm trying to think of something derogatory, but that one, I don't know, their hub that has to flow through them, which can be kind of threatening, to be perfectly honest. That if you believe that the reason why you're still employed there is because you know everything and everyone else doesn't, you can hoard that knowledge, then yeah, they might not be convinced, even if you can say this used to take this long and now it's this long. But I don't know, that's a topic for another day. Yeah. Or upgrade operating systems and running script. Right. Anyone else?
One more.
Ooh, okay.
How does Puppet handle stuff like repeatable tasks, not just configuration, but say you get a user list every week that says, hey, these people are no longer with the company, we need to delete them from all of our servers. Does this handle that well?
I think the answer is I think so. I think that would be like a little bit of a little extra work at the margins to do that if that was your use case. I mean, I think if you've been using Puppet, like that sort of user manager is probably trivial to you, like ensure user whatever else not present. That's really easy to use. I would guess. We have a professional services guy. We have Cody is our in operations. And these are day-to-day hands-on Puppet people, which I'm not. I would suspect it would be something kind of like make something that kind of like generates the public code or something like that to ensure that those people are not present. Okay, is that it? Thank you. Thanks everyone. Thanks for